To make your viewing experience much better, please use the time codes here or in the description by clicking on the link to jump to the section of the webinar you are most interested in viewing. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for actually coming to our webinar this afternoon. This is the fourth webinar in our series of hybrid learning. And this particular webinar is all about reducing teacher workload. So it's targeted to all you teachers out there where we want technology to help you and support you with making your job a lot easier. We've got three guests with us this afternoon and also our training team. Our training team being myself, Megan Brown, Paul Tullock and Terri Coombs. And Paul and Terri will be leading the session just after I've done these introductions. First of all, we've got Jenny Hinton, who's from Parkdale Primary School. She's the Year 5 teacher and also the IT digital lead. We've then got Jack Delaney, and Jack Delaney, he's from Wingfield Primary, and he's a Year 3 teacher and the digital learning leader. He's also the NQT induction tutor. And then finally, we've got Dan Mace from Langley Grammar School. Langley Grammar School is an Apple Distinguished School, and Dan is the assistant head teacher of that school and leads the digital learning throughout the school. Some fantastic things going on at Langley Grammar. So now I'm going to pass over to my colleagues, Paul and Terri, who are going to now lead the session.
Okay, thanks, Rich. That's great. So I just wanted to do a kind of very quick introduction. Obviously, we're all teachers here. We all know the workload, but in the latest round of the workload survey from the DFE, although it is 2019, it's the latest results. There's some quite staggering results there. The average working week for full-time member of staff is 52.9 hours, which is above and beyond the 48-hour working week. Over 1/3 of all middle leaders see their workload as a serious problem. So there's that fine balance in between. The curriculum deep dives that were introduced by Ofsted have created a new set of workload challenges it found. 1/3 of new teachers have left the profession before 5 years of service, which is quite a startling result and quite a startling kind of stat. And both young and new teachers are finding it rather difficult to see their career as being manageable and sustainable for teaching, and older teachers find out that work and life balance a bit of a problem. So that's just to highlight a few sort of things, but actually the workload for a teacher is very varied. So what does it on average look like? What is the role of the teacher? So we've got teacher workload. First of all, one of the biggest things is marking. Marking is one of the biggest things that takes up the most amount of time. Then alongside marking, you've got your assessment data and the moderation as well. That's another consideration. That's on top of the resource prep and the planning of your lessons. On top of that, there's a certain amount of stress that comes with actually getting the resources ready, making sure they're prepared and they're handed out and they're ready to be worked on in class. On top of that, we've got the organisation, the task management, all of those other jobs that you need to do day in, day out. We've got admin tasks for emails, staying in touch with the relevant services, staying in touch with other members of staff and colleagues, and also organising trips. And of course, one of the major things is staying in touch with parents as well. When you put all those kind of things together, they're on top of the 9 until 3:30 general sort of teaching day. So that's quite a huge amount of workload. Now, the iPad can support in this. The iPad can really help to take some of that load away and lighten the load. And it can really help you to be really kind of tech savvy and kind of find new ways to do things and make life that bit easier for you in the classroom as a teacher. Now, luckily today, we've got some fantastic people on our call today who are going to talk you through their experiences and their tips and how it's lightened the load. Just before I introduce the first speaker, I'm just going to share a very quick tip with you as well, just about how you can use something really simply to manage one area of that workload that I've just mentioned. One great way to stay organised and to help you keep on top of your to-do list and your tasks is to use Siri to help you set reminders. Simply move into settings, find the Siri setting down the outside, and here you can turn on top button for Siri and also Hey Siri. From here, I can set a reminder to help me organise tasks that need to be done, and I can set reminders to remind me at a certain time every week if need be. So there's one really quick tip for Siri. And my reminders are set there. Every lunchtime on a Monday, it's going to remind me to set the homework. A really good way to stay organised and keep on top of those tasks that need to be done. So that's one little quick tip that can help you stay organised as a teacher. And now I'm going to pass you over to Terri, and Terri's going to introduce our guests today.
Hi everybody, welcome to today's webinar. As Paul has already said, this is mainly focused around reducing that teacher impact with some real life stories. So our first panelist today is Jack Delaney, and Jack Delaney is from Wingfield Primary School, and he's a digital learning leader there.
Hi, Terri. Thank you. So, as Terri said, my name is Jack Delaney. I'm going to give you a little bit of context before I begin in terms of Wingfield and our digital journey. So we are we're in our 4th year of our time with Jigsaw. Before we started leasing our iPads, we had a cohort of about 250 children in the school. We were a 1/2 form entry growing into a 3 form entry, ready to move to our brand new building. And we had 30 iPads in one trolley across the school. And completely to the opposite of what you might expect, actually those iPads pretty much were untouched. There wasn't a big fight or scrabble for those iPads, because there were so few for such a large number of children. Teachers were very reluctant to use them in the classroom. Currently, we've got a cohort of over 500 children. We are now in our new building. We are 3 form entry from reception up till year 1, and 2 form above. And in year 3, year 4 and year 5, we have got 1-to-1 iPads, which means that all children in those year groups have got their own individual iPad labelled with their name on it, very snazzy. And the other year groups have currently got 1 to 2 iPads, so they share trolleys in those year groups. The way we utilise them has really changed and developed over the years as well. We began just by using them more as a resource sharing technique. So we use a platform called Shobi, which is a little bit like Google Classroom, but as a school, we much prefer this to Google Classroom. We find that with the Apple technology we've got, it's a lot more compatible and reliable. And initially, my year group partner and I in 2017 were just using the iPads as I said, a way of sharing resources to the children. So if I show you an example of guided reading this week, we're sharing the text with the children, we're sharing their questions for their comprehension, and automatically that is workload, in terms of that admin side, as what was discussed a few minutes ago, completely brought down, because that would normally be for me 27 sheets I'm having to photocopy, trim and stick in books for my class, and then of course arranging that for my year group partner. However, with the use of Shobi and obviously just camera, I'm able to create those resources separately and then ping them out to each child's individual iPads. As you can see in the top corner there, it says shared items. It automatically sends those out to the class, which means that they're accessible for them all at once. So in terms of that admin side, really reduces workload, and also just much better for the environment, saving on school budget, because we're spending less money on ink, because this is something we're doing currently in year 3, 4 and 5 quite regularly, because we have those 1-to-1 iPads, which is really fantastic. Something we've been really developing in the last 2 or 3 years are our online unit of learning books. So it's obviously very dependent for every school. However, at Wingfield in year 3, 4 and 5, the children have got an English book, a maths book and a science book. And then they've got their unit of learning book, which is all of their other subjects like geography, history, art, RE. And over the last 2.5 years, I would say, we have been developing online books that we create using Pages, and then they share it with us on the platform of Shobi. I'll show you an example of one from last term. They're not so great this year because of COVID. So where we start the children in year 3 with the one-to-one iPads, initially in that autumn term, it's very much training the children how to use them. Naturally, you have children that are much more have got a lot more expertise in using tablets than other children from what they've got at home. However, the initial term in year 3 is more about really getting them used to those quick tips and how to use the iPads efficiently. And then as they progress throughout the year, their outcomes become a lot stronger because they're used to the iPads more. So if I show you an example of when we did the Stone Age last term, who's going to be a good example and not embarrass me? I'll go in my class. So when we start the term, we start with like a page where the children sort of gather some ideas and some general Safari research using their iPads about the topic we're exploring. So we did the Stone Age for a whole term. And then here are some of their outcomes that they produce. So at the beginning of the term, we do a mind map where they explore what they already know about that topic. And this is something traditionally that we would have done on paper with pencils, looks a lot more effective on the iPad, much more engaging for the children. And the reason this really reduces workload is if I go back to here, we have got a system at the moment where we mark the children's learning on Shobi itself. So I'm not using a pen to mark in their books because these books are produced online via the Shobi platform. It means that I can type their marking. Really reduces workload in that sense because I can personalize their marking without it becoming time consuming. So I can write a comment, for example, lovely mind map. If you can see there in the grey, that's all me. Good understanding of the Bible. And it means that I can copy and paste those comments over to the children who, for example, have achieved that learning intention, rather than going through 27 different books with a green pen, writing the same comment over and over and over again. It just is a quick copy and paste job and it's done. And it's a really effective feedback because, as I said earlier, the children are much more engaged in their unit of learning since introducing the iPads, just because they have that love of technology and that passion for using them in the classroom. So really, really fantastic way of reducing our workload in regard to our feedback policy. So that's kind of just a whistle-stop tour of that. What we also are using at Wingfield, which I think is done through Jamf, if I'm correct, I might not be, is we use Classroom. So this is the app Classroom, where each class with the one-to-one iPads is put onto the system. In fact, if I show you from the beginning, this is set up normally before the academic year with all of the children in their class. And let me just close it because it's decided to take its time. Here we go. So here are the classes across the school that have the one-to-one iPads and 2 of our current iPad trolleys. And there's a list of all the children in my class, and the app allows me to do a load of things with it, which again, in that classroom time, when I'm thinking about behavior management, 7 buttons: open app, navigate, hide, lock, mute, screens, and group. What those allow me to do is control all of the children's iPads at one time. So if I want the children to be on a specific app, I can send them directly by clicking the open app, and I can tell them exactly where I need them to go, and their iPad will automatically open it. This on here allows me to lock the children in the app. So if I'm thinking about that time consumption of the children, sort of maybe if their behavior for learning isn't really positive, if they're spending a lot of time flicking through different apps when they're supposed to be based on one, this really reduces that, because the children know once they're in that app, if I lock them in GarageBand, they can't get out of GarageBand. They can press the home buttons as many times as their delicate little fingers will press it, but it will remove them from it. As well as that, if you look where it says the navigate button at the top, I can send the directly to pandemic back or points for AFL. I can lock the children's iPads so that their focus is back reduced. I think that the environmental impacts that we are having is way better than it was before. It was wasting paper and sheets being stuck into books, and the final products do look fantastic, and they can be shared very easily with the parents. But as I said, our marking policy has now been amended, which has reduced our workload. There's some nice appropriate pictures there. And yeah, it's just a really engaging and fantastic way for the children to learn. So we are definitely really happy with them at Wingfield. And we're now thinking about how can we take what we are already doing and continue to reduce workload. So I'll finish off on the point with, at Wingfield, we are currently changing our feedback policy, and we've been really lucky where we've been allowed to engage in our own action research and find a feedback policy that will fit our school. So each year group is taking on a different policy that exists already. And Megan, when she was at Wingfield, did send me the Shobi policy that I think someone at Shobi has created, whereby the feedback can be verbal, used by voice recordings, or videos of the teacher giving verbal and physical feedback to the children. And from next term, we're going to be implementing that in year 3 to see how that works and if that can positively impact our workload and the quality of our feedback. So that's all from me. Thank you very much for listening. I'm sorry if I spoke incredibly fast and monotone, but no, all in all, we've really loved the iPad so far at Wingfield. So.
No, Jack, thanks. That was great. It wasn't too fast. There was lots to cover there, but there's some really great points in there about the marking policy and the feedback. And you're right, that was always one of my bugbears when I was in the classroom, was that actually marking books, it was just that time to pick up a book, find a page, get the right highlighter, mark it, find the next book, and then that option to add the personal feedback with a voice note and just to type it quickly. So much better, as well as taking away the stress from the queue for the photocopier was always a big one too. So some really fantastic points there. Thank you for sharing.
I will add on, Paul, sorry, just to interject, you've just reminded me, what these have also really dramatically reduced in terms of workload is working with children with SEN. I've got an incredibly tricky cohort at the moment. I have 7 non-readers in year 3. For all different reasons, but the iPads have allowed the learning to become really personalised and have really taken a lot of stress off me. I've been able to, those comprehension questions you saw earlier, on Shobi you can record voice notes, so it means that if I did want to focus with another group of children, but I can't leave those non-readers, I can leave voice notes for them. They can sit there with headphones and they're still able to access the curriculum. Again, taking a lot of stress away from me having to just sit with that one particular group every single day, every week. It means that I can really get around the classroom with other children. So really great for SEN as well.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that leads nicely into our next speaker is Dan Mace, who is the assistant head at Langley Grammar School.
Hello, everybody. Yes, so if I was to give some context to Langley, we are just next door to Heathrow Airport. We are a very large selective state school with best part of 1,200 students across years 7 to 13. Because it's selective, we have students who are aspiring incredibly high, who work incredibly hard, and that creates its own set of challenges in terms of the welfare and the well-being of our staff. What I want to do is share a presentation that I gave to our staff fairly early into this January lockdown, which was recognising that the staff were having to deal with the side effects of teaching their 5 hours of lessons a day. We were teaching all of our lessons live by this point, in contrast to the first lockdown. And we wanted to give them some pointers as to how we could design remote learning in a way that wouldn't burn them out. This presentation was motivated for me at the time about some of the things I learned very quickly as an NQT, and that you don't have to do everything as a teacher at the front. Shouldn't really be standing up the front of a room teaching for an hour. You really want to be up and around, letting the children get on with activities. If they are engaged, they will make progress quicker, leaving you to circulate, check on the progress, interact with the students. Things that when you're starting out, maybe perhaps more in secondary, require you to let go a little bit more and are a little bit dangerous. And I, as an amazing set of schools for my PGCE training, and once I got to the grips with it and started out at Langley, I think I started to realise there was something in the title that you got of this book here. What does it mean to be a really lazy teacher? Of course, we're not ever going to be lazy, but actually dealing with well-being and workload isn't actually just about doing less work. It's about altering the type of work that you do. That means that the intensity of what you're doing in your job is important. And I think the question we said to our staff is, of course, there's things we can do about the workload and well-being per se, but actually one of the biggest ways we can help you is to change the way in which we teach. How can we be, if you like, lazy teachers? And we've been working with iPads since 2012. We are currently, all the students have a device one-to-one. So we have incredible opportunities there. And with lockdown, both the first one and the second one, we've had those opportunities to change our practice in a way, but we didn't want to just change our practice in lockdown. We wanted to change it in a way that would work when we're back in the classroom too. And I want to just share some of those things that teachers have done. And what I did was to share different ideas that I'd seen teachers doing in the autumn term and at the beginning of lockdown. And I think the next important thing we said to them, though, was this: as we shared these different ideas, to quote Michael Charles, who works alongside at Pearson, lots of ideas for remote learning. It doesn't mean you have to try and use them all in your lessons. Just saying, okay? The key point is that if you try and do lots and lots and lots and lots of things with your iPad, it's not good pedagogically. It's not good for your well-being. It's not good for the students either. So as I go behind this, the question is, if you want to use the iPad well, it's to keep children being taught, to keep checking that they've understood, and to do something about it if they haven't. And we put that in a framework for them, which some of you may see. If you haven't, Google it, the EEF's home learning approaches. There are 5 sort of stages they were recommending here that you go through as you're guiding students through learning something: activate their knowledge, explain, put it into practice, reflect, review, and go through the cycle again. And we said to our staff, we want you to engage 50% of the time with them and let 50% of them to get on with things by themselves. And so the trick is probably to use the iPad and to make a decision about what is it that you want to do with them. You quote up the front, whether that's online or up the front in the classroom. Do you need to activate? Do you need to explain? Do you need to practice? And then they go and do those other stages. What we're trying to do is give our teachers permission to let go and not teach everything themselves, and to use the iPad to achieve that. So let's take that first stage: activate and explain. And you can see 3 different things that I used. I highlighted something that went on philosophy and ethics. We're using the Oak National Academy resources. In geography, we've been using Seneca, and the science department have been using Science and Nature podcasts. And the point here was that they've learned about stuff in the past. They need to learn about something that's new. We need to explain new ideas to our concept. How does the iPad help? If I was to pick on one example, it would very simply be, oh no, I've gone back, excuse me. It would be podcasts. They have on their device access to a vast range of podcasts. We want to direct them. I guess here you've got the BBC Science one. One of my colleagues, Sophie Howard in Science, had decided to educate them through these different stories that you get through podcasting, a different voice, a different approach to hearing something being explained. So podcasts is something they can access very quickly, but then also go on and explore other podcasts. Now, I know they have that on their phone. Not all of them have the same phones, but what they have on their iPad is that equal playing field where we know exactly what they've got. So there's your teacher well-being bit as well. They know that the students have the same access to the same resources. That makes it easier to plan. We then sort of went on, and I won't bore you with the details of some of this, but it's what do they do with it? I mean, there are other ways of doing this. Like if we use OneNote, we don't, instead of Shobi, we rely quite heavily on OneNote. And if you look at what you've got on the screen there, there's a OneNote page. And OneNote lets you put together a package of content, if you like, for the lessons, push that page out to the children, and then they can respond to it. There's a few other things you can do along the way. My first stage of a lesson here, which was about oil and power relationships between different countries over oil. This is year 11 geography. And so I wanted them to watch a clip. I wanted to watch this sort of a 3-4 minute introduction to a film called The Kingdom. And then I wanted them to pull their ideas together as a result. Now, what does the iPad help me do here? Well, that video is embedded in there, which means on their iPad, the children can pause it, stop, move on. Okay. Now, I suppose you could do that on a phone or another tablet, but what else can you do? You can see that this student's done all their work using an Apple Pencil. So we are just engaging with that cognitive process of, yes, watch the video, but what do you do at the same time? And so you're not flicking between different resources. The video is there and the writing is there. We're trying to remove barriers in the sense that we're saying, well, if it's going too fast, stop it. Okay? If you want to rewind it and get another idea, go back. If you want to color code your notes, if you want to do this, if you want to do that, go and do it. And because they're all doing it on a one-to-one device, it also means that I can go in and read what they're writing. So I can go and see what this child's done. I can go and see what another child has done. This was done in school. When I was at home, I could in real time check on what the students were doing and support and encourage and nick their ideas and share them with other students as well. So part of that is the iPad, but part of it is the platform that's behind it. It's putting the two together that is quite helpful. Just one more example from geography. The accelerometer and the gyroscope that's built in. If you've ever tried to use Google Street View, you hold the iPad up, you move to the left and you move to the right, the children can move around Street View, almost as if they've got like a virtual reality headset on. They can walk, this happens to be Princess Risborough High Street there, where they went on a field trip back in year 7, and in year 10, we've just been looking back at that. And the challenge was to walk their route and just remember their stories of what it was like on that field trip, the things they remember. It provides alternative live fieldwork. So we can't get out and about quite as much as we can at the moment. But we have one-to-one with iPads, and we have the tools that are built in to make it really easy for them to engage with the real world, anywhere part of the world, as a result of that technology. It's simple little things like just the fact that the Google Street View turns when you turn the iPad. Either way, all of these things are ways to engage the students and in theory start to process it. I'll give one more example from another subject, a one-to-one. This idea comes from a book called oh gosh, I've forgotten the name of the book. It will come up on the screen in a minute. And the emphasis of the book is all about how you get children to explore and understand things and teach and learn. In a one-to-one, what you do is you get the children to understand something and then create a resource to teach it back to their partner. So if you can get them to use Explain Everything, draw, animate as a result, do a voiceover over the top, airdrop it, share it with their friends, whether they're in school or share it some other way they're at home. What they're doing is they're finding other ways to engage and explicitly teach new ideas to our students. And there's so many other ways. I mean, part of what you've got going on here are templates that we use with the children to capture their ideas rather than just it going in. Push a template out in Pages. There's an app called Schoolwork, which enables you to push a separate page out to all the different students. Some departments use that. We use OneNote. You could use Schoolwork. Students annotate it, they submit it back, and it's easy to check. And a bit like the primary school there, you don't have to worry about photocopying large amounts of paper and resources. You can instantly find out what the children are up to. And so that was the first stage of what we talked about. The next few are a little bit quicker, but what we're doing here is allowing students to learn materials from different types of teachers. We're not assuming that they've read it and understood it. We're checking on the proof that they've understood what they've read, keeping our energy and our time back to address the misconceptions, to share the things they've done well, to sort out the gaps in their learning. Second stage, after activate and explain, is practice. You can see 3 different ways on the screen there. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how the iPad helps us do those. But this point of this stage is they've learned something. How can they show us that they've understood it a little bit, to practice with their ideas, make some decisions? I've talked about OneNote, which is the picture at the back there. But here's a great resource that we've absolutely loved as a school over the last sort of 3 or 4 months. Back in November, December, when children were sometimes at home and sometimes in school, whiteboard.fi, and you create a little whiteboard.fi, and all the children kind of join it, and then they go away and they write as if they've got a mini whiteboard, and you can see exactly what they've all said in real time. It's amazing. So I could put the children into breakout rooms but continue to monitor the work they were doing. And if things were going a bit on off in a different direction, I could dip into that breakout room and have a chat about what they were doing. Again, it's an A-level geography thing on the screen there, but this actually idea came out of the French department first. They would be doing all their corrections to their exercises on the screen, and then the French teacher was able to go through some of those and highlight to the children where some of the mistakes were being made, and so on. One of my little favourite ones is this. If you're a smart notebook fan, we just replaced actually our smart notebooks with different products, but we still have a lot of smart notebook files around. Well, there's a smart notebook app. So this is the smart notebook that would appear on your PC, that if you send that smart notebook file to the children, rather than it being a discussion up the front, you can get them to do that diamond ranking exercise by dragging the diamonds around. Smart notebook becomes an incredibly versatile tool because it's a blank canvas for you to move things around on. So there's a lot of decision making that's going on that's very personalized and individual to the students. Why is this helping wellbeing? Because you're putting the emphasis back on the children getting on with things. And in our context, with a really heavy curriculum to cover to a very great deal, what we're trying to say to our staff is stop trying to do it all yourself. Let them loose for 20-30 minutes on one of these exercises in small groups by themselves, and say, well, look, you need to be able to get them to show you what they do and don't know. One of my colleagues got them to do stop motion, to do meanders, that classic geography thing, oxbow lakes and meanders. They had to use only materials they got at home. And so again, you're getting them to go away, use their iPad to create something that shows they understand a little bit more. So let them get on with producing their own representation of the ideas. Check, collaborate, work independently of you. There's the well-being bit. They're making progress, and you do a slightly different job because they're able to get on with things a little bit without you. My last little section, again, even shorter this time, reflection. Sometimes the hardest bit, but sometimes they need to be able to report back and communicate what it is that they learned and got on with things. There's so many different products you could use for this one, whether that's quiz software, again, whether that's iPad specific is debatable, but the point is you're monitoring what they're doing, again, changing that emphasis on what it is that you want to do. You can find Kahoot, Nearpod, Microsoft Forms, etc. Any kind of thing that, again, you leave it for the students to get by themselves, find out what they don't know, and things that don't rely on you. And if you can get those activities to be challenging to the students and encourage them to be independent, then the iPad hasn't just become something that's just there, it's become something that is inbuilt into a deliberate strategy to put well-being first. So think about being lazy teachers. It's good for their well-being, the children. It's good for your teacher well-being, but it's about finding the right tools that let you do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. That was really amazing. It's nice not only to see a secondary perspective, but actually looking at how, rather than tricks as that kind of short-term fix, the value of finding opportunities to change the way you teach for that long-term sustainable teaching approach is really enlightening. I really enjoyed listening to that. Thank you very much. So I'm now going to pass on to the wonderful Jenny Hinton. So Jenny is from Parkdale Primary in Nottingham, which is part of the Transform Trust. She's a year five teacher and also a brilliant digital lead for her school. So Jenny, over to you.
Thank you, Terry. I'm just going to share my screen. Hi, everyone. So an app which we've been using on a daily basis, which I feel has really sort of reduced my workload, is Socrative quizzes. I use these on a daily basis for so many reasons. Today I'm going to share with you some of the reasons why, not just kind of from a workload perspective, but also to really benefit our learners at Parkdale Primary School. So they're really quick to make and distribute. Socrative enables you to make quizzes, which can be multiple choice, one answer questions or true or false. And there's also that option of a space race as well, which is fab. The children love that because they can see their little rocket kind of moving along the scale, and it's great for that kind of healthy sort of competitive nature in the classroom. There's also an option of an exit ticket as well, so that's great to sort of use at the end of the lesson to identify children's understanding and to address any misconceptions straight away. So again, from kind of a workload perspective, you're not waiting to take books home to identify how children have done in a lesson. You can identify everybody's progress there and then. In terms of creating a quiz, it's really easy to create a quiz using Socrative with just a quick type of the question and input of the answers. Sometimes they take me a couple of minutes if I've got an idea, and they don't take long at all to create, and much quicker in comparison to typing it up, photocopying it and distributing it to the children. They're really easy to distribute as well, so just with a click of a button, you're not wasting any of your precious time at a photocopier. Prior to iPads, I used to have a lot of stress with our school photocopier, often it not working, replacing toners, going and finding paper, not having enough paper, trimming things, getting children to stick things in books. And I just find with iPads, and especially something like Socrative, it really does reduce that stress and makes a priority the teaching and learning. The functionality of the Socrative quizzes is really, really fab. Pictures can be inserted into the quiz. So I've used this for reading comprehension activities, sort of mathematical visual representations, geography quizzes, to locate countries and cities. And there's just so many options of how you can use the quiz to really make it interactive and supportive for children's understanding. I also find it's a great place for children as it's a great sort of medium for children because it's all in one place. So it cuts down on that photocopying, the photos as well, which you insert, or the pictures for each individual question, they can be enlarged. So rather than you sort of photocopying a text and then finding the questions and creating the questions and linking it to that, it's all in one place. So it just makes it really, really manageable for the workflow. There's also lots of options of you setting the pace for the quiz, which is great, especially in maths, as I feel it sort of really helps to identify the speed of recall of number for calculations. And I feel this makes things a lot more manageable in comparison to using paper and pen. In terms of duplicating the format, this is a real game changer because you can make one quiz. So I often make a quiz for a Monday for an arithmetic session, decide the operations and the focuses that I want for that particular week, and then I will just duplicate the quiz. So just with a click of a button, press copy, and then I can just go in and change the numbers and the answers. And I find this is really, really good also for making sure that children have a lot of kind of repetition, and it's a really easy way of kind of tracking data as well. There's also the option of copying individual questions as well. So you could copy one question if you've got a particular slide that you want to insert as a picture with annotations, but then you want a different question and different answers each time. That's a real time saver for me. I also find that in terms of sort of retrieval practice, the quizzes are great for this because, like I've said, you can set a similar focus of questions for a week, and you can then duplicate the function, but also just change the content. I found that our children have responded really, really well to this. They love to see their scores changing and improving with time, and it's been a really, really good way of knowing which areas to revisit. And I find it's a way that's manageable for teacher workload because you're not kind of sifting through books. You're not getting children to put their hands up and say, I got question 1 wrong, got question 2 wrong. So it not only saves the teacher time in the lesson, but it also saves the children's learning time, which at this kind of moment in time, at any moment in time, is so, so precious. The quizzes are automated marking, so this is amazing. From a workload perspective, a real beauty of the quizzes is that no marking needs to be done. And so I found them to be really helpful for blended learning as well, really great for homework, just really great to have like throughout the day. And we've been using them now just over a year, and the children don't seem to sort of get bored of them as long as they're being used correctly. They're kind of like, I guess, a bit of kind of a tool there's lots of options, but at the same time, they're not too fancy. The focus is on the learning and identifying the gaps and tracking the data. There's also that instant feedback for children, which is really, really valuable, because they get straight away, as soon as they've answered a question, they get a yes or a no. So they get like it's highlighted in green or red, and they know whether they've answered that correctly or incorrectly, which I feel has been really motivating for our children. There's also that live data, as mentioned. So during the quiz, I can see the live data really, really easily. I can be tracking the speed at which the children are working. I can be tracking their answers, not just if they've got it correct or incorrect, but I can also see actually what they inputted as their answer as well, which has been really, really helpful for me. It's been really helpful to plan lessons, future lessons, because I can just retrieve the data. In terms of gap analysis, it not only reduces my workload, but it's a tool which enables me to carefully track and monitor progress and create like gap analysis, which is actually already created for me. So great in terms of, again, workload. Instant reports, these are sent straight to the children via Showbie. If you've got access to Showbie, you can do that with a click of a button. As soon as the quiz has ended, you just click on distribute scores and distribute reports, and they're there with the children. And this has been really helpful for our children, because then they can go back and look at that. They can sometimes look at that at home with their parents and see also the areas that they're answering correctly or incorrectly, and the reasons why. As I've mentioned, kind of it's very easy to share within Showbie. So it's really easy in terms of sort of a workflow with that. You can also have the reports emailed to you as well, which is great. So it means that if I wanted to kind of go away for the weekend, when the restrictions ease, I could even have on my phone Socrative. I could download the reports, and I could be looking at them in the car. So I'm not reliant on kind of lugging around 30 books to look at exactly what the children have answered and next steps for my planning. So in terms of kind of teacher perspective and workload perspective, it allows for flexible working, I feel, as much as you can have flexible working as a teacher. And then kind of just looking at functionality of the iPad sort of in general, I've noticed like a real reduction in terms of admin tasks. So there's so much more time now that I spend on quality teaching and learning, real reduced preparation time. So it's been transformational for me really as a class teacher in terms of workload. It means that I've gained time, which always is a positive. Preparation for lessons is more manageable as resources can be shared digitally. As is mentioned by Dan and Jack earlier, through Showbie or whatever platform that you're using. Also, I find that I spend less time on tasks such as, photocopying. So I arrive to school with a much kind of fresher, clearer mind, ready to teach, in comparison to sort of arriving at school and thinking about photocopying, trimming, and distributing and sharing with other classes and other teachers as well. So great if you've got more than one class per year group as well. Really good in terms of workflow. Less time at the photocopier definitely reduces stress. I also feel I'm more responsive to children's needs as well, because I'm not reliant on that printed resource. So time in lessons is not wasted, trying to find a resource, print it, share it. AirDrop has been really positive for this, because I can share the resources as and when I need them by Apple Classroom or just AirDrop. Also, I found that children have been really empowered as well to share resources with each other. So I teach year 5, and they've soon kind of started to grasp the use of the iPad and sharing things through AirDrop. So that's been really empowering for them to share their good work with other children and to help other children out. In terms of being able to personalise learning, this has been really positive as well. So you don't always need to share a resource like a video with the whole class. You can just share that with individual children. This has been really helpful for me in terms of sort of pre-learn, pre-teach and help videos in the lesson. I feel all of this has really sort of contributed to my lowest kind of stress levels, as things can be prepared in advance and shared very easily with my teaching partner without having to send emails, attachments and so on. In terms of verbal and global feedback, this is on Showbie. I found again this to be sort of a real game changer. Very quick and very easy to record feedback for children on Showbie. I use this especially with writing. I find it's really powerful in providing verbal feedback for children for their writing. Sometimes I even do that in the lesson, so I'll give them the feedback, give them some quite comprehensive verbal feedback, but record myself at the time, and then they can kind of go back and listen to that, and they don't have to remember it all, which I think is fantastic for sort of cognitive load for children. Teaching videos, as mentioned, very briefly, so using sort of filming yourself using screen recording, which takes a couple of minutes to do, modelling a method on a keynote slide, and then distributing that and sharing that with the children. Then means that if you're kind of low on support, or kind of in a realistic classroom, not every teacher can access and support every single child every lesson. So if you can create a few teaching videos at different levels, these then can be shared with the children in the lesson, and they can also be a little bit more independent in helping themselves. Another thing is the Apple functions, just kind of the general Apple functions of having everything in one place. So prior to the iPads, all of our staff had just HP laptops. And on a HP laptop, you don't have the options such as a camera and screen recording. I just find with the iPad, everything is all built into one. So in terms of workload and again, stress levels, that definitely helps to reduce that, because you're not taking photos with a camera and kind of putting a memory stick in and then printing them. It all just kind of works really, really seamlessly together as a helpful tool for the children to evidence learning as well. And then, as I've mentioned there, Post-its. So using kind of apps as well, such as like the Post-it app, that's really helped me to sort of do my to-do list. And it's been quite satisfying to have them on a screen in comparison to lots of them sort of being scattered on my desk and then getting very lost in the Post-its and losing a Post-it and then worrying that I've lost a to-do on my list. So they're the things that have really, really sort of helped me in terms of workload with the iPad. They're just a few things really. And the biggest kind of impact for me has been that I just feel so much calmer, more energetic, and really sort of empowered as a professional. I definitely spend less time doing admin tasks, which make no impact on teaching and learning, but invest the time into what really matters, which is being responsive to children's needs. So I hope that's been helpful.
Thanks, Jenny. That was amazing. Really detailed, and it was nice to see, particularly with that Socrative, how one carefully chosen app can make a huge difference to reduce time spent on teacher assessment. So that was brilliant. Thank you very much. We're just about to pass over to the final part of the webinar, which is a couple of quick tip videos that we put together as a training team. But before we do that, attendees, if you do have any questions for any of our panelists today, please drop those in the chat in the next minute or two, and we'll come back to those right at the very end. Paul, over to you for some quick tips.
Thanks very much. That was brilliant, Jenny. Thank you very much. I just want to echo that. Some really great tips to take away there. In Jigsaw, we have 4 trainers, and as a team, we have over 50 years of experience in the classroom. So we've each put together a few little quick tips that may help in the classroom. So we're just going to play our videos now.
So I'd like to show you Seesaw. Seesaw is a tool that allows teachers to gather the learning of the students very effectively. I want to show you one thing within Seesaw. This is a teacher time saver. I found when I used this in the classroom, I was saving hours on marking and giving feedback to students' learning. So I'm going to mark this piece of work now. I'm going to give the student a comment. Now I could give a written comment here. I can say, well done. We all know how long it takes to write written comments, so I can post that now and it's going to go to the student, but you have to assume that the student is actually able to read that comment. And you know, some students, they don't actually read their comment, but why not give a voice comment? And Seesaw is brilliant for this. When I was using this feature, I was able to mark 30 students' work within about 30 minutes. Whereas if I was doing it by the old-fashioned way, via writing a comment, it could take me up to 2 hours to feedback, give good feedback for a student. And the advantage of using a voice comment, you can actually say a lot more within 10, 15 seconds than you can with actually writing it. So I'm going to give a comment now. Well done, this is a great piece of work. I can see that you're learning exactly what the parts of the plant actually are. But what could you do now? Are there any other parts of the plant that you don't actually know about? How about looking at other parts of a leaf and see what different types of leaf there are out there? So why don't you have a practice and see what you can find? And then I can stop that. I can then click the tick here, and then that will upload it to the student, and the student can actually then reply to that if they wanted to. So they could go to that comment and they could give me a comment back, or they could go and redo their piece of work. So this is a far more effective way of actually marking a student's work, because they can listen to it back, and it does save you time. So this tip is about saving time in Google Classroom. And this is a way a teacher can actually annotate within Google Classroom on an iPad on a piece of work that the student has handed in. So I'm in the classwork area of a particular classroom here. I've got an assignment here, create a logo, and I'm going to click on assignment 2. And this is the work that this student has actually handed in. And as you can see, I've already given a comment to that particular student. So I'm going to click on this piece of work. So that opens up the piece of work. This is the spreadsheet that they've created. Now, if I tap on the pen in the corner here, that's going to open up this document, and then I can use my Apple Pencil to annotate this. So I can tap on the pen here and then choose a different color. And then we can zoom out, we can go over to the other side. If I wanted to, I can actually write some notes down here and annotate their piece of work. And then when I save that, that's going to save that as a PDF. It doesn't save it as a Google document. It's going to save it as a PDF. Close that. And now you can see here, there's an edited option there. That's a PDF option, and that's the annotations that we've made. The student will then see that particular document and can make their own annotations as well. So that's another time-saving tool within Google Classroom on the iPad.
To access the control panel, slide your finger down from the top right-hand corner of your iPad screen. Here, the control panel has quick and easy access to some of the key features such as volume, screen brightness, do not disturb, Bluetooth, AirDrop and Wi-Fi, as well as screen mirroring to AirPlay content to your screen. There are additional iPad tools that you can add to your control centre for quick and efficient access. For example, by opening Settings and going to the Control Centre on the left-hand side menu. These icons with a red circle indicate tools that I have already added to my control panel. I can remove them from my control panel by selecting the red circle. I can add additional tools to my control panel, such as magnifier by selecting the green circle. Now, at the end of my lesson, when students are tidying up, I can very quickly use my control panel, screen mirror a timer to the board, and set the children a challenge to have tidied up within 2 minutes.
So when we're creating presentations in Keynote or a document in Pages, we often need to use images from the internet to enhance our document. So what we're going to do, instead of switching to Safari, saving the image and importing it, we're going to swipe up gently from the bottom to bring up the doc. Now I'm going to split screen by holding down the Safari button and dragging it, and I can see now that it is appeared, and I can put it anywhere I like on either side, and you'll see the Keynote moves across. I can pop it there and I can get that up, and I can Google in an image, for example, of the sun. Now instead of saving that image, if I tap on it, make sure that it is this larger option, and I hold it down, you'll see it becomes a picture that I can drag, and I can quite simply drag that across into my Keynote document, swipe across using the little bar in the middle to get rid of it, and I have imported that image straight into my document, and it saved me so much time instead of closing Keynote and going into Safari.
One great way to stay organised is to use the Files app to scan your documents and save them into cloud services. You will notice that on my Files app in the sidebar I have all of my cloud services signed in. If you have those apps on your iPad, you can quite simply click 3 dots, edit the sidebar and turn those apps on. From here I have gone into iCloud Drive and I've created a folder called Workload. Within Workload, I've created an additional 3 folders. I would like to save some pieces of work that are for moderation. I'm going to click into the moderation folder. I'm then going to go to the 3 dots and I'm going to hit Scan Document. This allows the iPad to become a scanner. I'm going to scan that piece of work. I'm going to hit Keep Scan.
If I want to add any additional pages to this document, I can do so now, but I'm going to hit save. And what you'll notice is it has uploaded the document directly into that folder. I'm now going to rename that folder just to make it easier to find. And then what I can do from here is I can hold my finger down on this document and I can use the tags feature, and I have created a tag to say that this is year 3, this is an English piece of work, and this piece of work is exceeding. When I tap off the screen, you will notice that there are 3 dots underneath it, which means that this piece of work has been tagged. And now if I need to go and find exceeding pieces of work, I can tap on exceeding and it will bring the exceeding up. I can tap on English and it will bring English up, and I can tap on year 3 and it will bring year 3 up.
So those were a few quick tips that you can take away and try out in your classroom. And we also just wanted to draw attention to a great resource that has been produced and is available as a PDF, which we will pop in the chat, and that is 30 time-saving tips for teachers. There are some great quick wins here that you can pick up and you can start doing straight away in your classroom. One last thing to say is I'd just like to thank you all for joining us today. And if you have any questions or you would like to get in touch or ask any other quick tips, I've just left our names on the screen there and our Twitter handles, which is the best way to contact us. I just want to thank our amazing guests anyway. So I'd like to say a big thank you to Jack for sharing the fantastic things that are going on at Wingfield Primary. I'd like to say a really big thank you to Dan for your really interesting take on how the iPad actually, it's not the quick wins, it's the pedagogy behind the iPad and the way that it helps to reduce the workload and the well-being. And of course, those fantastic tips from Jenny as well. So thank you for joining us. I hope you found that useful. And if you have any further questions, please just contact us. Thank you.